Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we have some Monday night playoff game fours here for you guys, as we've got the Dubs and the Grizz, as well as kicking things off here with that Eastern Conference game. Got Milwaukee at home once again against the Seas. They are up 2-1. We'll take a look at some best bets, a few player props in here as well. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we bring you each and every playoff game with a video, as well as those player props videos as well. Also want you to head to playpicks.com. Check out all the great work Nate and team are doing there with some written content for you, all the best bets and player props you need, as well as plenty of MLB action as that baseball season is continuing on. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, the Celtics, I believe, open +1 or 1.5 at some books, but it's basically a pick 'em now at FanDuel. People are hoping and expecting this series to be evened up. Every analyst out there saying they think it's going the distance, it's going 7. So Celtics have to win this game basically for that to happen. And then in the Memphis game, yeah, of course, bad news. Ja Morant probably not going to play with the knee injury. So it's a 10-point spread out for the second game in Golden State. 225 is the total there after Golden State just went off in game 3. Interesting way to play that one with Memphis. You don't really know how they're going to respond without their guy. But let's look at the more interesting game here on the East Coast, or in the Eastern Conference, that is. First and foremost, if we're talking FanDuel bets, Giannis is even money straight up to be the leading scorer in this game. I don't know. I mean, we could just end the episode right now, Josh. Like, just put your money on that. If you're a betting man, that's what you want to do. I mean, he's posting a 44% usage rate the last 2 games. I think if you just separated the second half of game 2 and the last 4 quarters, it would be close to 50%. He's taking half the shots for the Bucks. And Tatum has just been awful, just absolutely awful in this entire series. And I said after game 2, he kind of backed into 29 points, late couple threes. Wes Matthews is in his head from the opening tip. He's getting annoyed. He's getting off his game, and then he's spending way too much time focusing on the refs, and everyone on Boston is. Like, I mean, that's going to be a main point of emphasis, you think, behind closed doors, about concentrating on the game and not how this game's going to be called, because it is incredibly difficult to officiate with Giannis out there. I mean, aside from how the entire team plays, just the way Giannis plays, which just say, it was a nice Sunday afternoon, or it was Saturday this week, watching him run for 240 yards and 3 touchdowns through the defense, and then get away with a flagrant on Tatum, 2 goaltends, I believe, and a charge so egregious that Hubie Brown on air went, oh, twice, as he just shoved Grant Williams twice, and the refs told Udoka, he has to fall down. Like, that's some rec league. And just one more thing on the officiating, which was terrible both ways, by the way, that the Celtics shot 17-0 on free throws down the stretch. That's a terrible mark as well. But that no call on Smart to say we're not giving you 3 free throws, that's some more rec league officiating. That's like what the refs do when they don't want to work overtime. They're like, no, we're not giving you 3 free throws. We don't want this game to be tied. Just an utterly absurd call when he was just like completely going right up. I mean, you see it all the time, but we're focusing on game 4 here. We are talking numbers, and once again, it's the battle of paint points versus 3-point shooting. Neither team could hit a 3 in game 3. Once again, under. I think the Bucks are 9-0 to the under now in these playoffs. Can Boston keep Giannis out of the paint, or at least limit him enough to be in this game? I mean, that probably not, to be honest. He's going to get his, and I think the Bucks are due for some positive regression shooting the ball. So honestly, I think I'm going to zag here and say we finally go over in one game. If we are looking at things, I mean, the total is not dropping that much. It's only 212 now, but I think eventually these teams are going to find some rhythm despite the physicality. I mean, all the emphasis on the officiating after that game, maybe there's going to be a lot more free throws too, both ways. A lot more emphasis in terms of not being able to hold and check people up at the perimeter. And that would definitely free up Tatum because he's getting bullied out there. Like he's been, kind of tucking into his shell. And like I said, just focusing on what the refs aren't calling for him, and he's not being productive. But Jaylen Brown has picked up the slack, that's for sure. 29 points with a 129 offensive rating the last two. The Celtics looking much better with Smart out there. We saw what Horford did. So, I mean, it's going to be a close game down the stretch. Absolutely. I don't think I'm qualified to bet on the money line here because I just so badly want the Celtics to even this series. But if you do agree that they're going to even it, still looking at the series prices here, it's plus 125 for this to go the distance. It's plus 500 for the Bucks to win a game 7 at the Garden. That's been the same basically since, and plus 250 for the Celtics to hold on in 7. I think either of those outcomes are definitely possible here. These teams are just battling so hard, and the defense is so good in this series that any game could go either way.
It could, but it's for Boston, it is super, super dependent, man, on Tatum, and it's not like we haven't been talking about the dependency that they have on Tatum. And I still don't even see it as a huge crutch because he is a superstar. And it's not like you should be, the game plan should be that he's, heavily participating. And what's interesting is he started poorly in all 3 games, just very, very poorly. And it's what you called out to me after game 1. You're like, man, Wes Matthews doesn't care if he gets 3 fouls in the first quarter. He's in his jersey from the jump, right? A lot of times you see guys just kind of like playing off at first, letting guys get shots off. If they make it, then they get in their jersey. It's like, no, from the jump, Tatum has Wes Matthews. He's wearing him like a chain, right? Like it's a part of him at that point. So that's why he's out there, man. Wes Matthews is barely shooting. He's hitting a couple nice threes, but I mean, he's basically PJ Tucker from last year in the way that they game planned around KD. This is the same thing. And Jaylen Brown is doing very, very nicely. It's the reason that they were even able to keep this game close and that they were able to come back. And look, I would agree with you. This was so bad both ways. I would say, the C's definitely benefited, especially in that second quarter when they made their run from just a ton of free throws and a ton of sort of, choppiness. And they were sort of calling that offensive foul on Giannis in the second quarter. Then they weren't afterwards. I would just say there was a couple times where I was like, yo, Grant Williams, you do got to go to the floor, man. Like, I know you're taking a giant shoulder to your chest, but like, you do got to go to the floor. And then you get the call. That's all I'm saying. Moving past that, and what I'm looking for is a lot more Giannis on offense. If he's going to continue to do that to this extent at home, like he has been, I think there is a bit of a value to be found in Giannis's performance at home in these types of games versus on the road, where he's not going to get those calls. He's not going to go to the line. He's going to have booze all over him while he's going to the free throw line, where we know he's not that strong, but he was able to come through. He's been averaging about 8 for 12 or 8 for 13 roughly against the Celtics this season from the line. And that's what you saw in that last game, 9 for 12. That's huge, man. And the lack of turnovers. I mean, 3 turnovers. I know that sounds like a lot very often, especially, what do you have in this game? Like 6 assists. So a decent 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, but really it's not bad when you look at the way that he's playing and that usage rate and the amount that the ball is in his hands at the top of the key. I'm fine with the 3 turnovers, especially when, you look at what they've been doing, getting back on defense and keeping the C's from getting those fast break points and points off of turnovers, which they started to do a lot better job of after they got rid of Dennis Schrader and brought Derek White in. And that's not necessarily what they've been able to do against this Bucks team. And look, this is, like you said, people probably see me laughing while you're talking, because what you guys are witnessing is Nate talking logically. He's saying things that I agree with a lot in terms of a bit of a regression and uptick positively for the C's. If you do think this series is going a bit more of the distance, you have to believe that the C's are winning this game. But I could also see this going 6, and I could see this game going the Bucks' way, in which case I would immediately start throwing my money at the Celtics in game 5 to get this thing to 3-2. And then it's just a matter of whether or not you think the C's can actually pull one out against the Bucks at home. But right now, not only the Bucks offense that you see in Giannis's performance at home, getting better and definitely playing a bit better there. You also see their defense, man. And that's something that we just continue to not talk about, I think, because we sort of poo-pooed the Chicago Bulls offense, especially when Zach LaVine got hurt in that series, in a way that we didn't give Milwaukee any credit for good defense. We just said the Bulls didn't have what it takes on offense. But seeing what they're doing in this series, the way that they are game planning for Tatum and playing him tough, look, I mean, they're causing him to make decisions that I wouldn't want to have to make, where it's like, we're not giving you a three. You can step in and take a little bit of a mid-range if you want, but once you get anywhere near the paint, you're also getting met by another defender or two. And I respect that, man, because that's the way you got to play him. But he's got to take what they give him, and I haven't seen him do that yet. So I think he will settle in, and you saw him do that in the second half of Game 2, where he came back and definitely brought that team ahead and really helped widen that gap, especially in the second quarter and then into the third quarter, where that's really what I mean by second half, I guess, second quarter, third quarter. And I think I would continue to feel good about him playing a bit better in this one. If you do want to eye some props for Tatum in this one, what do we have his points at? We had it listed here a second ago, 28.5. So, I mean, I think this is something where, like I said, like 29 or so is what he got in that Game 2 when he needed to really make a big comeback for them. And I think you can expect a bit of that from him in this game.
I would not back that. I mean, I'd love to see it, but I don't know if he's a killer like that. I mean, this is an absolute like James Harden moment, having just watched him respond to all the critics, I mean, early in his career, but he's getting punked. Like, yeah, no, this is an absolute, like, Jason Tatum has to go out there and be tough. He is scared to attack the rim. He has not been attacking Brook Lopez. Like you said, he's not pulling up and looking for his shot. I mean, the Celtics are trying to keep that ball moving and get the best shot available, but no, they just need Tatum to be tougher. They need the entire team to be mentally tougher and less focused on the officials, like I'm saying. And they need to come out with a renewed focus in the third quarter, especially. I'm looking at the last 2/3 here, where the game has basically been lost for the Celtics, or they almost kind of started to blow that big lead in Game 2. Shot 30% from the floor in both. They're 3 for 18 from 3 in those third quarters with 12 turnovers. So they just need to lock in for 4 quarters and focus. But I think they need to know that they're not going to completely continue to hold the Bucks in check here, especially on the road. Hold them below 100, hold them well below their averages. So that is why I'm kind of leaning towards the over. It's interesting that it's minus 120 for the C's to go over their total to hit 106, and minus 120 for the Bucks to go under 106. So, I mean, odds makers are saying they think the C's win a close one here, but that it's more likely than not that they do find their offensive rhythm here. Finally mixing it up in terms of getting shots on the interior and getting those good 3-point looks. You'd think that they can start to have some efficiency here, but it really is, like Hubie said early in that game, what is a foul tonight? And that's really going to determine a lot of how this game goes, because, Giannis is the most difficult player to officiate since Shaq.
Yeah, he is. I agree. But at the same time, like, I don't know, I think Shaq should have been easier to officiate. If you're hanging on his elbow, then you get a foul call. And that wasn't always the case, because they didn't want to chop it up or whatever, stop the game that much. But just finishing the point that I'm still like, I do think I believe in Tatum a bit more than I think you do. I do think that there was a corner that he turned this season where I still was a bit worried. People were saying, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals twice. And it's like, I'm not saying it was flukes, but there was a bit of weirdness in those. And he didn't really come out. He had a couple games in the playoffs where you're like, oh, there it is. There's the killer instinct. Game 6s, you'll remember. But then when it came to, the conference finals or games where he met teams like the quality of the Bucks right now, right, he didn't bring it. I think this season, the way that he'd stepped up his game since January, once I think is when he really got past COVID, which he also had once again at the very beginning of the season. I think it affected him a ton in a way that he was making a sort of leap and he didn't. And I'm just really defending my idea that he gets close to 30, if not 30 points tonight, to be honest with you, because I do believe in him. I just wanted to make that
and
clear.
I want to defend him too. I don't want to say I'm slandering him and that he's not a killer. I mean, he did step up in a series with the Nets. He can win a finesse game and be a killer mentally. What I'm saying is I don't think he's at that point where he can handle physicality like this series is right now. And I've seen him struggle against the Heat the same way, just not having the willingness to go in there and attack relentlessly. And he's also dealing with a wrist injury, which is when I brought up that flagrant that Giannis got away with, or that just, kind of annoying Dylan Brooks-esque chase down when he was out of the play to hurt that wrist further. That's just something to monitor, is why I'm not really going to put a lot of my money on Tatum to score 30, because he's hurting too.
That's fair. No, and all that's fair. And even without that, like you said, because of the way that Jalen especially has stepped up, you do feel a bit more of an over in this one when you do start to get the recognition that when you're in Milwaukee, Giannis is getting those free throw attempts. And as a result, you're going to have to get play off him a little bit. And even when you do double him, those role players are playing a bit better at home, a la Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton hitting a bit more 3-pointers once they got back to Milwaukee in this series. Last thing I would say there is I do like the over on that Milwaukee 105.5. That's currently what the total is for both teams right now in this game. You just get a bit worse odds there for Milwaukee to get over at minus 125 versus the C's is minus 120. So it's the same total, slightly better odds for the C's as they believe more in the Bucks there, at least at DraftKings. And I would still feel good about taking that, to be honest, in this one, as I also feel good about Giannis and his props and his continuing to, even if they try to get the ball out of his hands a bit more in this one, maybe you start to look at the points and assists, points, rebounds, and assists for him once again, as I do think he should be getting close to 50 of those in this one.